good people don't smoke marijuana.
I've known Larry for a long time.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
This is the Medical Marijuana Radio Show with Larry Love. All love. I got something here for you and me. Oh yeah, it's the medical marijuana. Whoa, whoa. I got something here for you and me. Oh yeah, it's the medical marijuana. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Medical Marijuana Radio. And today we're going to be talking about what's growing in Grandma's garden. And with the industry blowing up as it is with cannabis, we have to explain to children what's going on. So we're going to be talking right now with Susan Soares about how to talk to young people about our cultural change. And here she is.
This is the Medical Marijuana Radio Show with Larry Love. All love.
And we're back. And today I have Susan Soares, who is not only the author of What's Growing in Grandma's Garden, but also she does many other things in the cannabis industry. And in this time of this budding industry, as everybody calls it, people and parents will have to explain to their children and grandchildren what cannabis is and why it's not the evil thing that people were taught years ago. So Susan Soares, welcome to Medical Marijuana Radio.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So let's get into the book. What made you want to write this book?
Well, you know, I've been an activist for well over a decade, and it's just been a reoccurring issue. You know, it's one of the arguments that the people that oppose cannabis legalization always say, you know, what about the children? And I've been doing a little bit of research, and you know, that's how a lot of different things have been stopped. They always say, you know, blame it on the kids. And this particular argument when it comes to cannabis never made sense to me because, you know, it's like they're asking, what about the children? It's like, what about them? You know, I mean, you just need to talk to them, you
Right.
know.
It really should be what about it really should be what about the parents? Okay, the parents.
What about the parents?
Lock up your liquor cabinet, lock up your medicine cabinet, and guess what? Lock up your cannabis cabinet.
And your guns and
Yes.
all of the things, your pornography, you know.
I totally agree. So how do you, you know, of course we want people to go get the book, but how do you talk to kids about this change in society right now?
Well, my book was specifically written for around 3 to 10-year-olds because I believe that the conversation about grown-up things should begin, you know, right when they start to understand just general concepts, because it's that's how you normalize it. That's how you make it not a big deal when they're older, you know. So you know, I just think that you just start from the very beginning, you know. In my case, my grandkids come over to my house and I have a beautiful garden and there's cannabis growing in the beautiful garden. It's just matter of fact, that's grandma's carrots, that's grandma's strawberries, it's grandma's cannabis, you know. It's just part of,
I understand.
part of everyday life.
Obviously you've, you know, put your book into action. So how are children responding to it? And is this for children to read themselves who can read, or is it for someone to read to them?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on how old they are. If they're 3 years old, they're going to enjoy the illustrations. I put a lot of effort into making sure the illustrations were beautiful. And if they're reading age, they can read it themselves. I think that grownups should be in the room with them when the book is being read the first time, because I keep it really sort of mainstreamish. I didn't want it to come off as, you know, this is written by an activist, but I wanted it to be something that could be in elementary school libraries. I never specifically say anything about grandma smoking a joint, but she's off in the background smoking a joint.
Okay. In a rocking chair or just a regular chair?
She's just in a regular chair.
Okay.
She's downwind. The family is having a family barbecue. The kids are playing, and grandma's by her locked up greenhouse, downwind, smoking a joint.
All right. Well, so give me a couple highlights in there. What do you think is the most important thing that kids need to understand in order to, be in this culture of ours that is now allowing cannabis for everybody over 21?
Well, in the book, it's really about organic. It's about fresh. It's about our bodies, and what being concerned about what we put in our bodies. And so my favorite page is where after lunch, the grandson asks the grandma, "Why are some things just for grown-ups?"
Hmm.
And they sit down on the sidewalk and get out the chalk and draw this big, beautiful, colorful brain. And they talk about the brain and how his brain is still growing. And just like the plants in the garden,
Hmm.
he needs to make sure to feed his brain the very best things.
That's great. I was going to say, I was going to ask you that question because it only makes sense, So grandma, pass it over. Why is that? So do they ask like, why is that good for our bodies? Or can you be particular with a child that way, or are they not comprehending? Because they're
Well,
going to ask you that.
yeah, the next page after they've been on the sidewalk coloring the brain, grandma has to get up and rub some topicals on her knee because that hurts to sit on the sidewalk for so long.
Hmm.
As a grandmother, I can tell you that. And so she's rubbing her topicals on her knee, and the grandson says, "Well, I guess there are some good things about just being a kid." So it's kind of in a humorous way,
Yeah,
showing that grandma needs medicine and he doesn't.
I totally understand. So what in your life got you interested in getting into the cannabis industry as a profession?
Well, early on, I was raised in a military family and a very strict LDS family. And the Mormon church, when I was a part of it, was very anti any type of drugs, except pharmaceuticals, which the Mormon church had a very big pharmaceutical drug problem,
Hmm.
because, when you can't uh, do any alcohol or anything, you find a way. And one day I was in my early 30s, and these kids across the street were smoking something out of a pipe. And I called the cops and I said, "Hey, you need to come arrest these teenagers. They are smoking drugs." And the cops were like, "Hey, so is it crack or is it weed? What is it?" And I said, "It's drugs. Come and get them." And I honestly thought that they should be in prison. And then I sustained an injury. I got a concussion while I was performing my young women's job at the church, and it left me with a migraine headache that lasted 2 years long. And I was just, you can't imagine the pain that I was suffering. And finally, at my wit's end, my neighbor was growing cannabis, and she talked me into trying it. And it worked. And it made me realize that I had been taught a bunch of bullshit. And oh, I'm sorry, can I swear? Grandma swears.
Absolutely, what's in Grandma's swearing vocabulary is the next book that you should
All of the
do.
words.
So no, of course you can. This is for internet and cable and stuff. So
Yeah, so
go
it
ahead.
was bullshit. It was absolute, all this stuff I had been taught was bullshit. So and thanks to cannabis, I was able to change my mind on a lot of different things. And so I decided that when I finished raising my children, I would dedicate my life to changing minds that thought the
Mhm.
way I did.
Excellent. And so can you elaborate on your first time? I mean, I didn't even feel anything from the first 10 times I smoked cannabis back in 1968. It took a while. So did you get effects the first time, and how did you dose yourself? Did you smoke a whole joint with your friend, or did you just take a puff? Because dosage is so important for first timers.
Yeah, and we had no idea what it even was. Back then, this was just the year before Prop 215 passed.
Okay.
And, I didn't even know anything about the legalities. I just, to me, might as well have been shooting up heroin. So I suppose, I mean, it was a long time ago. I suppose I experienced anxiety and didn't really think about dosing. But I can tell you that I also started lifting weights, and the combination of lifting weights and the cannabis really helped me with that, because it really helped me focus on the specific muscles that I was working on. And 6 weeks later, my migraine was gone, and I have not had one since then. Yay!
How fantastic is that? Well, even though the government says there's no medicinal value to cannabis, and that's why it's a Schedule One, there's people all over the place that are just proving that on a daily basis. And one of the reasons why, I'm doing these educational shows and proliferating medical cannabis and adult use cannabis as well is that I feel I need to give back. I mean, I've been using this plant in next month it'll be 53 years, and there's not too many days in between that I didn't use it. Honestly, there's always the drought of 1980, I think, as I recall, in Los Angeles, where I might have missed a few days. But what made you get into now this other aspect of the business? You have a wonderful show on Clubhouse, and for those who don't know, Clubhouse is an app that's right now is for Android, excuse me, for Apple only, but they actually are releasing an Android version in beta right now. So they told us to be kind to the Android people on the app. So you have a wonderful show Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. California time, where experts all over the country are talking about the latest news. What gave you that idea? And it's a fantastic show. I never miss it.
Thank you so much. Well, I've been doing cannabis events. I love doing events. I love producing events. I love production, and I've done it pretty much all of my life. When I was in the church, I was putting on events all the time, and then I did some movie making technology events in the late '90s, early zeros, whatever we call that decade. Um, and was actually awarded by the mayor of Los Angeles for those events. And then I started doing cannabis events and for all of the different nonprofit organizations. And then I decided to just start doing my own thing. And I do a conference in September and a Coachella event for the artists in April. And then we had COVID.
Mm.
And so I had to reinvent myself, and I did a year of Zoom meetings and webinars, and then Clubhouse came along, and I just really got Clubhouse. After a year of doing Zoom stuff, I kept wondering, we're all isolated, but nobody wants to turn their video cameras on. I don't understand. And then, Clubhouse just totally nailed it, and I love the format. Uh, Spent, well over 1,000 hours in Clubhouse, discovering, who was doing what was working, what wasn't, how to moderate, all of that stuff. And I ran into news.
Hmm.
And the guy that started, Andrew Lee, he started news. He's an early investor in Clubhouse and Patreon and Instacart, and he's young and he's rich, and he's started this news show that he has to do every morning at 6:30 for 2.5 hours, 7 days a week. And I thought, this guy's way smarter than me, and if this is working for him, I'm going to just go ahead and go after him and do an hour of the cannabis news. I'm the cannabis correspondent on the news show, and it's just an extension, kind of a spin-off of that. And we just finished our 12th episode today, and everybody loves it. I mean, the correspondents are so energized and so love it, and I just think that it's going to grow. We're going to be here a year from now, 2 years from now, and with Android coming online, like you say, we're going to have an 80% boost in people on the app.
I know it's going to be amazing. And you have like some of the top experts in cannabis from all over the country reading their favorite story of the day and then discussing it for either 4 minutes and 20 seconds or 3 minutes when you get closed on time. So, can you give us like maybe a highlight of one of the stories from today or any story that's been on your news show so that people can hear
Um,
what we do?
Yeah, let's see what was really controversial. We talk a lot about social equity because we all care so much about that issue. And really, when we were after Prop 19 failed in California, uh, when we were trying to figure out what we were going to do, one of the things that a lot of us felt very strongly about was that because yeah, how often are you alive and involved in a new industry being born?
Hmm.
And so, I thought, and others thought, this is a perfect opportunity to change the way business is done and, do it a better way. And it doesn't appear like we are doing that so much, but it's the goal. So we like to talk about things like that, keeping it real. We talked about the Skittles lawsuit and how that was never a good idea. It doesn't give the industry a good look, or the cannabums. Come on, really,
Right, right.
cannabums?
Well, let's tell people what Cannabis hopefully was, because I understand from your show the other day they sort of disappeared. I hope this was a company who did I guess, a water soluble powder or something for people to do a bump, which even the real bumps weren't that good back in the day. But it didn't feel right or sound right, and I'm surprised they weren't talked out of it. But so, what was the outcome? What happened the other day that changed that they sort of backed off?
Well, I mean, the packaging, they made it look exactly like a little vial of cocaine with a tiny little spoon. And they got so much backlash that the company that was doing the white labeling said, nope, we're not going to do that anymore. So
Uh-huh.
they
So
they gone.
yeah, and rightfully so, because that really was would give us, the cannabis industry a bad name. It just makes no sense to get into anything. I hope no one got sick from it. I don't know that they would. That stuff is made to dissolve in water. Who know? Who knows? Who knows what it does once it gets into here and where it goes from there? We have no idea. But
Yeah, I mean, we think we're being clever, and then we don't think about the rest of the world. I think that I forget what the number is, but I think like 60% of adults in the United States have never even tried cannabis.
Mhm.
So while they 90% believe it should be legal in some fashion, that doesn't mean that they're in the same place that we are. I remember it must have been, I think it was 2010. I was asked to speak at the El Segundo Kiwanis Club and about cannabis, and we had a really nice discussion. There were a lot of older white gentlemen, and it was going really well. And I pulled out a lab. I made a copy of a lab readout from a strain, and I gave everybody a copy of it to show them how we were testing and making sure it was safe. And here's what's in it. And this guy raised his hand, this older gentleman, and he said, "You know what? You had me until train wreck. Why is this called train wreck?" And I
Yeah,
was like, oh man, I don't even know what to say. I mean, yeah,
wait,
why is it called train wreck?
right. You should have said, "Why don't you try the green crack?"
Right? Or the AK-47 or the cat piss or the thunderfuck or whatever,
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, when it's underground, you can sort of, try to name things. I'm the guy who thinks up good names for things. I'm in the cannabis domain industry. I've got like over 250, but you think about it a different way when it's not legal than when it's legal. Okay, so the company that white labeled the bumps said, "I'm not going to be involved in this." Now, the company that hired them for that product, did they have other products, or was that their brilliant idea that they had when they were so high one night?
You know what? I don't really remember all of those details. I know that the person that had the license for the product said, no, we're not going to
Mhm.
do that.
Right. Well,
So the
that's good.
licensing deal was, yeah.
And that's what people like you and I in our community are watching out for bad players, and that would make it harder for the good players to do good business. So it's good that we have like some bullshit detectors out there, using grandma's word.
Yeah, grandma said bullshit.
So now the cannabis events is of big interest to me because one of the things that I want to get into personally are cannabis lounges and areas and stuff like that. So I guess earlier when you were throwing events for cannabis, only medical patients probably could go into a smoking area. So now, how has uh, the legalization for adult use and the do you have to get a license to when at an event to have an area for adults to use cannabis?
Yes, and so far I have not done that for lots and lots of reasons. I mean, it's really hard to find a city that will allow you, because first in California, first you have to get local approval, and then you go to the state, and it's really hard to get local approval. So, if people want to go to a place where it's legal to consume cannabis when they're taking a break from one of my events, I can't stop them, and nor do I want to stop them. But
So, I mean, I went to several events. Well, I went to the 2012 Cannabis Cup in LA, downtown, and they had a section for medical card patients, medical holders. So it's basically sort of a wink, wink.
no, the law is very different now. 64 changed everything.
Okay. So
Yeah.
how did that change? What are the changes on that?
The changes are that you have to have a state license for any consumption. And
Okay.
in order to get a state license, you have to get a local license. And for me, I moved to Long Beach specifically because I felt like it should be the mecca of cannabis events for so many reasons. But the mayor and the city council don't see it that way. They're super concerned about DUIs, which is, ridiculous. Long Beach czar of cannabis. He was concerned that we were going to be using the convention center. We were all going to get super high and we were going to drive. And I said, you are aware that you've got 12 bars in your convention center, right? I mean, come on.
Good
That's
comeback. Great
that's
comeback. I love it.
ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, that's just crazy. So what you're saying is that if you throw an event as an independent event planner, so to speak, there's no like event license for that one event only that the state or city can give you if they want to. Is there, or do you need to have like a
No, there is.
umbrella light? Okay, so okay,
There is, but you have to get your city. Like I have to get the city of Long Beach to say, yes, we're cool with Susan having a consumption area and or sales.
hmm
And they have to give me some kind of documentation that they're okay with it. And then I take that and I go to the state. That's easy. Once I get local approval, I give the state, I think it's still $1,000. And fill out a little bit of paperwork and I'm good to go. But getting the local permission is the tricky part.
So are there certain localities that you already know are not on the good list, and you maybe stay away from them and go to the good localities, or are you just trying to spread your events in different places to appeal to a lot of people?
There's just a few local governments that are cool with it, like Santa Rosa, Oakland. I don't even think San Francisco is yet, maybe. Um, uh, Cathedral City, Desert Hot Springs, Adelanto, and that's about it.
They're the ones that don't allow it, you mean?
That will.
That will allow it. Okay, I was going to say Oakland. Sounds to me that's the birth of
No. So that's just a little handful
right. Yeah.
of the 500 or so cities in California that will allow it. Hopefully, we're going to see a change with the three agencies going together into one agency here in California. My understanding is what I was told was that the regulations they were like, so the regulations now are like playing chess, and we're trying to make it like we're playing checkers. So they're trying to make it easier for everybody, easier to understand, easier to do. and they're working on a hospitality type of license that wouldn't be as difficult to have a smaller event like a dinner party, or yoga, infused yoga, whatever. But you still have, cities not wanting it. So I don't, and also, another part of the problem is, which I've been concerned about for so long, is the anti-smoking lobby in the US has done such a fantastic job getting rid of smoking cigarettes everywhere that we're lumped into that whole thing. The smoking thing is an issue that I don't know how we're going to get through there, but I mean, I'm a single grandma and I like to go out. I like to meet people. I don't necessarily want to go to bars. I don't necessarily want to, that's really the only place you can go to meet people. And that's ridiculous. We should have as many cannabis consumption lounges as there are alcohol bars.
So there are a lot of lounges in the LA area. I mean, does Beverly Hills have lounges or
No, no, no,
no? None of them.
no, no,
Not Santa Monica. Nobody. Only those
no.
cities. So
There's
where?
there's one, I think it's open. COVID had a big hit on this as well, but I think I forget what it's called, the original. It used to be Lowe's Cafe,
Lowell's,
Lowell's
and now it's
in
like Canna Cafe or something similar to that.
Canna Originals,
Yeah,
something.
yeah. I know what you mean.
There's supposed to be 12 lounges opening up in West Hollywood in the next 12 months or so.
Okay.
My friend Rich Eaton has one in Cathedral City called The Vault. But there's
Oh,
just,
that's been there a long time though, right?
yeah,
He's been, yes, I've seen that. I've seen him on TV or stories about that. It looks like a wonderful place to go.
it's fun.
Yeah. So that I mean, honestly, with adult use, and people that travel into any state, you need to have a place that's legal for them to actually smoke without getting harassed by authorities and so forth. So it's like the cart before the horse, or they're not planning it out right. This should have been planned out a little bit quicker. But
It's so stupid. It's so ridiculous. Let's just talk about Long Beach, for example. So we have all of these cruise ships coming into Long Beach. And I mean, they just doubled their capacity right before COVID. And so the cruise ships, they're designed that you spend all of your money on the cruise ship. But one thing you can't buy on a cruise ship is cannabis, right? So they come in and they spread out and go wherever they're going. But what they need is a cannabis lounge in Long Beach, a bunch of cannabis lounges, so they can come, they can purchase their cannabis, they can consume their cannabis, and they can go on their merry way and tour Southern California, go back on the ship, and keep on cruising, because they can't take cannabis on the ship. So
there needs to be a like the Port Cana Lounge, so people
yeah,
can just maybe then go on their trip. I mean, right there. That would be wonderful. I think
yeah,
that's a great idea, and I think you're right about Long Beach. I know that Long Beach has changed a lot since I left that area. I lived in LA for 30 years, but California still is in my heart, and I like to know everything that's going on there. And do you see? I found that in California, I tried to get some medical products for a friend of mine that lives there, and they seem to be disappearing in California. It was very hard to find suppositories and patches for someone that needed them. Are there any dispensaries that you know of that maybe still specialize in medical products?
I think there's one in Santa Barbara. I'm sure you could find it online, but you're right. The retail owners that I know, their medical, quote unquote, medical customers are, like between 10 and 4% of
Right.
their market. So they're not really geared for that. And, I'm not even sure if they can carry the high dose tinctures that medical patients need.
Right. See, that's one of the major problems. I mean, if it wasn't for those guys and gals up in Northern California in 1996, Dennis Perone and all those people that made people understand that this was a legitimate medicine, we wouldn't be talking today, you and I, okay?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
so that was major, and one of the reasons that I give back and try to educate people is that it really is a great medicine for many different things. And I think the problem over the last few years was the fact that, yeah, we kept coming out and saying, yes, it's good for Alzheimer's and it's good for MS and so, and people said, yeah, right, all that, it was like it made it too unbelievable. But the truth is what it is. It is good for all of those things, and the government had been hiding it for years under that U.S. Patent 6630507, and that was costly to our society all these years to know that some of us knew that cannabis could shrink tumors, and yet people were passing away and not getting the help they needed with uh, chemo and all that kind of stuff. So I think we still need to try to keep some people in the medical industry. Now, here in New Mexico, we just legalized on April 12th. The governor signed the bill, and it goes into effect at midnight on June 29th, and then people will be able to grow their 6 plants, but sales and so forth for adult use won't start. It'll start on or before April 1st of next year. But I have a feeling with all the hundreds of dispensaries we have here in New Mexico for medical that they're going to try to proliferate that a little bit earlier. Okay, so they also have micro licenses here. Okay, you can get just a micro license for a nominal fee. I think maybe 2,500 for just being medical only. So that is one way that other states can also try to keep some people who want to be in the medical industry making the products and the strong products that really sick people need is to have medical dispensaries. And I give back because of the fact that it really is good medicine.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And one of the problems that we have is that the argument is made that, well, there's not enough research. And the other argument is, well, let us please research,
Yes. Yeah,
It's-
well, that's just a lame excuse because there is research. Because as far as I know, no one's died from smoking cannabis. I mean, that's the line that we've been using for 50 years, But there does need to be research because dosage, like we were talking about earlier, is the most important thing because someone with anxiety, can smoke like one hit of sativa or the right amount, and it can help them. But taking too much of a sativa can actually put you into an anxiety attack. So dosage is so important with medical and in adult use because when people are going to be trying edibles for the first time, if they take more than like 2 milligrams of something, I'm going to say that's probably not a good idea. If you take this wonderful product and have a bad experience, you probably won't go back to it again. And that's the sad
well,
part.
yeah, dosing is kind of one of my favorite things and least favorite things to talk about because dosing is it's a personal thing, and even for an individual, a dose on one day could affect them one way, and on another day affect them another way, and it's just so complicated. But people, like, for example, my father's friend was passing away from cancer, and his big issue was, well, a doctor can't tell me how much I need to take, when I take it, the dosing, it's not there. And my argument always is, well, you feel so comfortable with your pharmaceutical drug dosing, but it's always being played with. The doctor's always saying, hey, we're going to tweak this down, we're going to tweak it up. And that dosing isn't perfect either. In fact, I heard the other day that there's this new 3D printing technology that they're going to be using for creating pills for the pharmaceutical industry, where they can get the dosing personalized, and even get rid of all the fillers in the pills, and even make like a cocktail pill where
Mhm.
you've got all of your things. So dosing isn't perfect in any regard until we figure out exactly what's going on with an individual's body and can say this is exactly where you are and this is what you need we're decades away from knowing that stuff.
Right. Well, the problem with that, of course, is consistency of growing a natural plant like this. Who's growing it? What cultivars they're growing, and what cannabinoids are in there, and terpenes. All of this plant works together with itself, and when you start separating it, it does different things. I mean, there will be some compounding in the future of cannabis, of cannabinoids, and the THCV does great stuff, and CBG, CBN for sleep. There's going to be some of that going on in this industry, but the consistency and of course testing, that's the important thing about dosing, and you have to have good labs to analyze, the crop before it's made into any products, or else, dosing. And of course, there's some labs like to give out high THC numbers because that's what people think they want. But,
Some labs.
Oh, well, okay.
Some labs.
I'm being kind to people that I know in the laboratory business, okay?
Yeah, I know, but it's like if there's no standard and your monetary incentive is to keep your clients happy, and come on,
But
really?
it's also educating the clients, the end user, okay? Because the end user thinks, oh, this number, I should get that. But they may get way higher from 18% or 17% THC, depending upon what other cannabinoids are in there, what other flavonoids and terpenes and stuff. So it's just a misconception of that THC is everything.
Yeah, and what I've said all along is, if you want the very, very best cannabis for you, grow it yourself.
Right on. Because you know what? I don't think I hardly ever grew a plant I didn't love. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We get a connection with this plant, and I've heard people talking about how when they're taking clones, they'll take a clone, put it in their mouth, take the other clone, and then people that take their seeds and
Yep,
put it
yep,
in their mouth
yep.
before they, and they feel that they're going to get, the plant will get a connection with them, and I find nothing wrong with that. I know that plants, whether they're cannabis or not, do respond to music and vibrations. I mean, there's the best thing about this new industry is we're going to learn so much in the next bunch of years. It's just going to be mind blowing, and that's the research that you were talking about. Is not only just the research, but it's just using the plant in different ways, and so forth. It's very exciting to be here right now. This is really like the beginning of the computer age was, 30 years ago. This is an amazing time to get into the cannabis industry, but at the same time, you need to have some knowledge, and education is what will make someone successful in this industry. There's just so many people. I'll take the hemp industry for that matter. 2 years ago, when the Farm Bill passed, everybody with a backyard wanted to go into the hemp industry, and a lot of them ate it because they never grew before. They did grow, and it was hot, and there was no place to go. They had to destroy their crop. And then people that did make products, they didn't have people lined up ahead of time in order to get it into biomass and to make it into products that and
They
everybody's
didn't
sitting
set
there.
up their supply chain. Their
Yes.
supply
Okay.
chain
Thank
wasn't
you.
in
I
place.
was looking for
Like,
that. I was looking for the word, the supply chain. Thank you. So I think that educating the people that want to go into this industry is important, and also keeping the legacy people, giving them a chance, the people that actually know how to do this.
amen.
Okay, there you go. What else would you like to touch on today?
Well, the legacy folks, that is so near and dear to my heart. And
Yes.
and this is part of the industry showing the world how to run a new business. I just think that we need to really emphasize knowing who your farmer is, knowing your farmer, caring about your farmer. If you care about what's, especially a product that you're going to light on fire and put in your lungs, it's really important to trust your farmer.
Right.
And if we can lift up that's the very beginning of the supply chain. If we don't take care of that piece, the whole
Mhm.
the whole industry is just going to crumble.
Well, garbage in, garbage out. That's the
Yeah.
old saying, and that is definitely the truth. And this industry is is and was built on the OGs that have been around it for a long time. And I'm doing a series of interviews that I want to get some of these OGs and interview them like we're sitting here today. And I believe this, and I call it the on the backs of the OGs, because people need to know. There's people that advocate on Facebook and other places that and they were born in 2000 or 1990 something, and they have no idea what we went through for 50 years of some of us trying to find it and get something that that works for you and not get arrested. It's been a tough. The younger people just have no idea. It's just natural to them now that cannabis was a medicine, and now it's illegal for adult use. They take it for granted, and I think that's a problem that we need to educate some of these people, and they need to be thankful for what many of us have gone through. We lost one of the pioneers yesterday or today, Boston George. I don't know if you know who he is. Are you able to tell us anything about him? Or
Tune in tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Pacific
Okay.
Standard Time. We are going to, Steve Bloom is going to
Excellent.
cover that tomorrow.
Excellent. That would be great, because we lost Steve Fox a few weeks ago or a month or so ago, and I had someone on that knew him and was able to talk about him. But the OGs that got us where we are today are dying off, and we need to thank them and be glad that they took their lives in their own hands and did this anyway and developed strains back then. I mean, all these guys that were doing it illegally, we need to thank them. It's important.
I agree.
Yeah. So tell us where people can get what's growing in Grandma's garden. Do you have one to hold up?
Oh shoot! It's over. It's over
Okay,
here.
that's okay. but tell us, who's got it? Where can they get it? And it's Mother's Day this weekend, so maybe it's a good thing that they should order and tell tell mothers that it's coming next week.
Absolutely. Anybody that has a child anybody that loves cannabis and has a child in their life should have this book. And it is kind of pricey, but I didn't realize that it was going to cost $7 just for the dust jacket.
Oh my!
So it's kind of a collectible. But it is Children's Book Week, National Children's Book Week this week too. So
wow, perfect.
yeah, so go ahead and go to stateofcannabis.org/book, and you can purchase it straight from my website, or you can just search it on Amazon. But yeah, I'd appreciate it if all your listeners could support my work by purchasing my book. I think you'll definitely enjoy it.
Or
sure.
hitting you up on Clubhouse. I'm sure you're monetized, I'm guessing, there as well.
Yeah.
But thank you for your hard work. Thank you for trying to educate not only the children of grandparents, but the grandparents themselves. So Susan Soares, thank you very much, and thanks for your time for medical marijuana today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we'll be right back after this.
Thank you.
This is the Medical Marijuana Radio Show with Larry Love.
Well, I want to thank Susan Soares. Check out her book. I also want to thank my two radio mentors, both with the initials HS. Thank you for your inspiration. We're always looking for good guests. You can write us at info@mmjradio.com. Also, check out the cannachannel.com. We have a page on over on Facebook, the Canna Channel, posting new and very selective videos and podcasts. And we'll be back next week.